Welcome to Mickey, Marvel, and More, Disney news, commentary, and opinion. From theme parks to Thanos and from Skywalker to Skyliner, my family and I will discuss it all. So let's go!
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
Hello, Mark here, and welcome to another episode of Mickey, Marvel, and More. Thanks so much for opening your favorite podcasting app and hanging out with us here today. For all of our rabid, loyal fans, welcome back. And to those of you that are just joining us for the very first time, where have you been? Don't worry, though. Even though you're late to the party, we are grateful you're here. You've heard us talk about it before here on Mickey, Marvel, and More. Star Wars Celebration. But what is it really? I'm sure many of our listeners have never been before, so we thought it would be a lot of fun to gather around the virtual table and yap all about Star Wars Celebration. We're going to talk about what it is, what kind of things go on there, and share some of our favorite memories from all the celebrations we've been to over the years. It should be a lot of fun. But before we get to that, how about a little news from in and around the Disneyverse?
This is not Santa's workshop. It's just one section of a creative world where new attractions for Disneyland are conceived.
First up, we have a big reveal about the Frontierland Cars expansion, as well as a hint to when all this new construction will begin. This last week, Disney Imagineering released what they called a fun map. That's a new one. I've never heard that description before. Basically, it's a map made up of idealized art that shows an approximation of the layout and theming of this new Cars area in the Magic Kingdom. It also revealed the name of this new area, Piston Peak. The new area takes guests to Piston Peak National Park. The name is a reference to the park in Plane's Fire and Rescue. Remember that movie? No? Not too surprising, as it was a bit of a dud at the box office. I saw it, but I don't remember a thing about it. It was a dark period where mom and dad were fighting. In this scenario, mom and dad were Disney and Pixar, and they almost got divorced. But luckily, they worked it all out in the end and recongealed together. And by worked it out, I mean Disney just bought Pixar and made it all one big happy family. But I digress. In the show notes are a couple of articles that lay it all out with the fun map as well as an overlay of how this might all fit into the area. Cool stuff. Be sure to check it out. But the kicker to all of these reveals is that they finally told us when the Rivers of America, the Riverboat, and Tom Sawyer Island would close permanently. July 7th. And along with that announcement, they also informed us that on July 7th, the Frontierland Railroad Station would be closing. I assume this is to facilitate the coming construction. And with that announcement, they said that the Walt Disney World Railroad would be running in shuttle mode for the foreseeable future. It will only be running forward and backward from the Main Street Station to the Storybook Circus Station in Fantasyland. Disney Imagineers also told us that they plan to accommodate the guests that don't want to ride backwards, and they will actually be turning a number of the seats on the train the other direction. So, all of these changes coming to Frontierland and the Magic Kingdom will be starting on July 7th, and I assume that there will be a giant hole in the heart of Walt Disney World's first theme park soon after, just waiting for Lightning McQueen and the gang to come fill it up as the latest addition. That means the clock is ticking to see the OG Rivers of America before it is gone forever.
Luke! Take these two over to the garage, will you? I want them cleaned up before dinner.
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
You can waste time with your friends when your chores are done. Now, come on, get to it.
All right, come on.
It looks like we won't be seeing Luke Skywalker again in the Star Wars universe, at least not with Mark Hamill playing the farm boy turned Jedi Knight. Mark Hamill recently stated that he is done playing Luke Skywalker. In a recent interview with comicbook.com, Hamill said that fans should not expect to see him return as Luke Skywalker ever again in any of the forthcoming installments, and that Disney and Lucasfilm should focus on the new faces going forward. Hamill said, quote, "I am so grateful to George for letting me be part of that back in the day. The humble days when George called Star Wars the most expensive, low budget movie ever made. We never expected it for it to become a permanent franchise and be part of pop culture like that. But my view is, I've had my time, and I'm appreciative of that, but I really think they should focus on the future and all the new characters. End quote. Hamill played Skywalker in the original trilogy and in the sequel trilogy, as well as being on set and then subsequently de-aged in The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett. So it looks like the new Jedi Order trilogy, focusing on Rey rebuilding the Jedi Order, won't have Hamill even playing a Force ghost. Hamill joked, quote, "And by the way, when I disappeared in The Last Jedi, I left my robes behind, and there's no way I'm going to appear as a naked Force ghost. I'm just telling you that right now." End quote. So it appears that we have seen the last of Luke Skywalker, unless they come up with some really clever recasting. I'm looking right at you, Sebastian Stan.
I'm starved.
I'm so hungry I could eat a whole zebra.
Ah, we're fresh out of zebra.
Finally, we bring you our favorite kind of news here at Mickey, Marvel, and More. Baby animal news. Some new chicks, aka baby flamingos, have been born over at Disney's Animal Kingdom Lodge, adding to the flamboyance that's already living there. That's right, a group of flamingos is called a flamboyance. But if you've ever ridden Kilimanjaro Safari at Disney's Animal Kingdom, you already knew that. And that also means that you know that flamingos aren't born pink. They are born fluffy and gray. They turn pink as they get older due to their diet of algae and brine shrimp, which are rich in carotenoids, which give certain foods a bright pink color. Believe it or not, there are actually 6 species of flamingos. Those in Disney World are the greater flamingos, which is the most common kind of flamingo. These flamingos are also the largest species of flamingos and can grow up to be about 43 to 59 inches tall. So the next time you're over near the savannah at Jumbo House in the Animal Kingdom Lodge complex, stop by and say hi to these little fluffy guys. As always, Mickey, Marvel, and More will always keep you up to date with all of the Disney animal news, big or small. But we definitely love the small. So stay tuned.
You're George Lucas!
I take it you're here for the Star Wars convention.
I sure am. Want to see my costume? See? I'm a tauntaun. But I don't have to tell you. You invented tauntauns.
Well, that's very interesting.
Listen to my tauntaun call.
Nicely done.
Recently, in one of our news stories, we mentioned the dates of the next Star Wars celebration, and it got me to thinking about all of the fun and cool things that we have seen going to all of those celebrations over the years, and I thought it might be fun to turn those memories into a family chat. So, to do that, I'm going to need some backup. Joining me now is my favorite co-host and wife, Laura.
Hi, glad to be here.
I didn't mean favorite wife, as in I had multiple. I just meant favorite co-host, comma, and wife.
Okay, there we go.
Grammar is important.
There we go.
And as an added bonus, coming to us from an undisclosed location in an underground bunker from our Echo Base studios in Chicago, we are also joined by Zach. Welcome.
Hey, the Echo Base joke really works this time, considering the context.
Right. So, for people that really don't truly understand what a Star Wars celebration is, why don't you, honey, run through just briefly what it's all about?
Sure. So a Star Wars celebration is a massive fan convention dedicated to all things Star Wars. It usually runs about 4 days. And there are all kinds of activities. Usually it's held in a large convention center, and you get everything from people dressing in costume to lots of panels where people are talking about different aspects of Star Wars, to celebrities, to vendors selling every kind of Star Wars product under the sun, to all kinds of fun games and activities and crafts and everything you can imagine having to do with Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, for those that understand what a con is, it's like San Diego Comic-Con for just Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
They announce movies there, and they have trailers, and they announce the television shows, and there are themed food courts. And there was one year where they had the Echo-based bar, and the entire place was full of ice. Unfortunately, the kids were too young, and we were unable to attend. But it looked very, very cool. And just to give you an idea, there have been 16 celebrations. I know that Zach was surprised by the number, how many there had been. The very first celebration was all the way back in 1999 and was held in Denver. And it was essentially just a big precursor to episode 1 coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And it ended up being a bunch of tents in a field, and it was muddy and gross, and it rained the whole time. But they decided that the turnout was so good, they were going to keep doing it. And the next 2 were located in Indianapolis. Now, I have been kicking myself all of these years that we never went to the ones that were so close to us, but they happened in the years 2002 and 2005. What was going on in our lives in 2002 and 2005?
Babies.
That's right. And in that particular, it was Baby Zack.
Baby Zack.
Yeah, sorry to kill your fun, Mom and Dad.
Oh, no.
It wasn't my fault. I didn't ask to be born.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to leave that part of the conversation alone. And our family have personally been to 5 of these celebrations. The first one was in 2007 in Los Angeles, and this is when they were still calling them Celebration 1, 2, 3.
Mm-hmm.
This one happened to be 4. The next we went to was Celebration 5 in Orlando in 2010, and then another one in Orlando, Celebration 6 in 2012, and then we went back again in Orlando in 2017. And I got to tell you, those Orlando ones progressively got worse, if you remember.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It became more and more about standing in the lines to stand in the line so you can stand in the line to go see the panel or the show or the preview.
Or buy the merchandise.
Or buy the limited edition merchandise. Luckily, they dumped the company that ran those versions of the celebration and picked up a brand new company, and which brings us to the last one we went to, which was Celebration Chicago in 2019. And I've got to tell you what, they really got things organized then. They got it all redone, and it felt like it used to.
Yeah. It was a really good Star Wars convention.
It was very, very well done.
No more waiting in lines to go to the store.
Right. Well, and if you remember the big thing in that last one in Orlando that we went to in 2017, they only had the store open certain times of the day for blocks of time. So you had to either reserve in advance your block of time, or you had to stand in a standby line for that block of time. And having no idea when we were going to be available to go to the store, I didn't make any reservations. So we had to stand in that ridiculous line for however long it was.
So I don't really remember, but did the Star Wars celebrations, did they always, like, were they kind of an unofficial thing? And then as they became more popular, they sort of became an official thing? Like, what I mean by that is it wasn't just fans running it. It sort of became like the people that are, making Star Wars themselves became much more directly involved.
I think that is true. I think the first one was done by the official Star Wars fan club, but it wasn't done by Lucasfilm proper.
Because at later celebrations, they started, because we were at Celebration Chicago when they debuted the trailer for Rise of Skywalker.
Right. I mean, and that's what it's become now. They tend to have these celebrations now tied to events or milestones or anniversaries. The first one was just a fan-organized event by the official Star Wars fan club, but not by Lucasfilm proper. I would say by the third one, Lucasfilm had kind of taken over and had made it a much bigger deal. By the time we went to the one in Los Angeles, they really had all the gears and wheels running, and that was a pretty celebrity-laden event, as I recall. But the next one is going to be in Los Angeles, April 1st through the 4th, 2027. And the reason they picked that location and that date, They wanted to be in Hollywood for the 50th anniversary of Star Wars: A New Hope.
Yeah.
How do you feel, Grandma? 50 years, right?
I was very young when it came out.
We were 7 years old. Speaking of being very young, Zach, do you have an earliest Star Wars Celebration memory?
I think I do. It's a rather fuzzy memory because I really don't remember much about the first celebration that I went to. But I think I do have a couple of like faint images from that day. So if we're going chronologically, technically speaking, my earliest memory is standing outside of a big brick building in the hot Los Angeles sun waiting to get inside.
So not only is it an early memory, it's a scarred early memory.
But then once we were inside, I remember getting my face painted.
Yep.
I think is that correct? I want to say like I got like a Darth Maul.
You
face
did.
painted.
You were Darth Maul, and then we had a picture of you posed with Darth Maul.
And then I remember really enjoying playing in the like kids club kind of area that they really didn't bring back for any future celebrations.
Yeah.
The best kids, they called it a family room.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The best family room that we ever had was the very first one.
Mm-hmm.
They continued to do it over the years, but it became less and less organized and more like, here's some coloring books, here's some board games. Oh, and here's some board games you can buy on the field. Why don't you try, or out on the floor? Why don't you try them out here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they skewed more and more younger.
Mhm,
But
they
I
did.
remember at that first one, they had a little area where they dressed up some like RC cars as Womp Rats.
That's right.
You remember that?
Yeah, and you shot Nerf guns at them.
Right. Yeah. No, so I think those are really the only like vivid-ish memories I have of that first celebration.
Yep. A memory I have from that first one was actually something that happened before the event. This was when Laura's brother Patrick still worked at the Los Angeles Times.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a person on the paper staff that was going to do a story about Star Wars Celebration, and they were looking for people to talk to. And Patrick says, well, funny you should mention that. I have family members that are coming out to go to this celebration, and they're really into Star Wars. Why don't you give them a call? And we ended up being a couple of paragraphs in her story, talked about our family and talked about, our love of Star Wars and why we wanted to go to this event. And that article caught the eye of Steven Sansweet,
Mm-hmm.
who is, at the time, he was the, I guess they called him the fan liaison. But the big kicker for him is he is a huge, massive Star Wars collector, and he's been collecting things since the very beginning. As a matter of fact, in San Francisco, his entire property has been turned into a Star Wars museum that he gives tours of.
Mm-hmm.
But he was really excited when he read the article, and the girl that interviewed us was going to be there and wanted to introduce us to Steven Sansweet.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to meet, that was my first Star Wars celebrity that I ever met. I mean, that's Star Wars celebrity adjacent.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
he's become a pretty big deal, though. He's written
Yeah.
books. He's really known as the expert on Star Wars collecting and
for
Star
sure.
Wars collections. And his collections have been shown in museums
Mhm.
that we've attended. So he is a big deal.
That's one of the things we've never gotten around to doing, going out to visit your family in San Francisco, is go to Rancho Obi-Wan and check it out. We really need to do that sometime, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So in going to all these Star Wars celebrations, everybody has things that they really enjoy and things that they look forward to. So I'm going to ask you guys, what do you like most about Star Wars celebrations? Honey, you can go first.
There's lots of things that I like, but if I had to choose just one, I think one of the things that I enjoy doing most at Star Wars celebrations is shopping on the vendor floor. I like to shop. And so it is always really neat for me to go and visit these booths that are set up by different corporations where they show off their latest and greatest Star Wars merchandise. And often they have some pretty neat free giveaways that you can't get anywhere else, that are exclusive and that are brand new. So I'll give you an example. So Hallmark, for example, the greeting card company that also makes collectibles, they typically will have a booth at Star Wars Celebration where they will debut either exclusive merchandise or this will be the first place that you can get it before it's on sale to the general public.
Their new Star Wars Christmas ornaments and stuff like that.
And sometimes they will have giveaways of things that you can only get at Star Wars Celebration. Another one that it sticks out in my mind was a Japanese airline.
Oh, that's right.
That had some jets that had a paint job, one for R2-D2 and one for C-3PO. And they were giving away these ink pens that I think lit up on the end and looked like R2-D2. And they were super cool looking ink pens.
And they were free.
And anyway, I think that collecting things like that at a Star Wars celebration is always a lot of fun for me.
Yep. Okay, Zach, what's something you look forward to, or a favorite thing, or the thing you like most about Star Wars celebrations?
I mean, similarly to Mom, I enjoy walking around the vendor floor. I just think it's neat to see what's there, what people have made. You know, there's usually like a Lego booth or a video game booth, and I just think it's really neat to see what they have rolled out there. But I think the thing that I often, think is the coolest whenever I'm there is seeing like big like models or dioramas that people have put together, especially like Lego dioramas where like they've like recreated like a battle or some scene from a movie, because I know how painstaking making a Lego model like that can be. You know, apart from just dioramas and stuff, like we've seen people bring in like custom built cars, or like they have I'm pretty sure, you can correct me if I'm completely making up this memory, but I recall at one of the celebrations, someone had like made a life-size Rancor model.
Yes.
Rosie the Rancor.
Okay, yeah, and I remember thinking that was so cool and so impressive to see. So, I don't know, I guess in that way, I look forward to a lot of the art that people have made in that way, and I also love seeing the creative costumes that people come up with. I think that is so fun to try and, like to people watch, to spot what people have done and be like, oh, this person has made a really in-depth like General Grievous costume. That's really cool how they put that together.
Yeah.
Or, oh, this guy is literally a Lego character. That's really funny. So I don't know. I think those aspects are the things that I always find the most entertaining, and I'm always really excited to see.
Yeah, I really enjoy the vendor floor with all the, the major companies, Sony, Xbox, and Lego, Hasbro. But I think the thing that I tend to look forward to and enjoy the most at Star Wars celebrations is the droid room. It's the droid builders.
Forgot about the droid room rules. Forgot about that.
The droid builders. These guys build droids from all the Star Wars movies from scratch, and they look as good and function better than the ones that were actually in the movie. As a matter of fact, when they were making Episode 1 in 1998, they had a couple of droids and they couldn't keep them running. And they needed more droids for this scene. If you remember back to the film, inside Amidala's spaceship, all the droids pop out and they go up onto the outside of the hull to repair the ship while it's flying. One of them, of course, is the hero R2-D2. But they needed 5 or 6 other droids, and they just didn't have any. So they called the droid builders. And every single droid in that scene, even R2-D2, was brought there by the droid builders, and they have been involved in some way in every Lucasfilm, Disney, Star Wars project since then. And it's just so cool to see the way that they design these, I mean, like I said, they work just like they do in the films.
Yeah.
But in the films, they do a lot of fakery. You know, they have people inside the costumes, or they have, you know, tubes and, you know, somebody pumping air through something. But these are fully functioning droids, and it's so very impressive. I very much always look forward to that. Okay, so let's look at the dark side of going to Star Wars celebrations. I know that was the worst dad joke in the world. What is the one thing or something that you just don't like about Star Wars celebrations or really bothers you, honey? What do you got?
So I'm gonna give this criticism, but then also wrap it in a compliment.
Nice.
Yeah. So one of the things that I dislike the most about Star Wars celebrations is the lines.
Oh.
And even though they've tried to do a good job in the most recent Star Wars celebration that we went to,
much better
about minimizing lines, part of it can't be helped. I mean, when you have that many people in one space all at the same time, all wanting to do the same activities, you have to have a line. And I think we've done a good job over the years about avoiding those lines because we didn't want to spend our time standing in a line. I also felt like, though, we probably missed seeing some things that we would have liked to see,
right,
simply because there were lines. Now, that being said, there are lines because there are lots of people. And one thing I will say about Star Wars celebrations is all of the celebrations we've been to, all of the people there have been incredibly nice.
Oh, yes. All the fans.
Yes.
Everybody strikes up conversations and lines. It sounds corny, but it's nice.
Incredibly nice.
Which is crazy considering what Star Wars fans are normally like.
Well, those are the trolls that don't even come out of their basements.
Yeah, those are the people online.
There you go. But I've always felt like they were very family-friendly atmospheres. People have been very kind to our children over the years at these events, making them, you know, feel included, having activities that appeal to kids, teaching them new games, complimenting them on their costumes when they would dress up in costume. It's the nice thing about having lots of nice people, but the downside is then you have to stand in line because all these nice people want to do the same things.
Right. All right, Zach, what do you got? What do you have?
I mean, yeah, it's Star Wars conventions have just gotten bigger and bigger, and like there's such a big deal now that it's kind of impossible to avoid major crowds and long lines for things. And as you know, we're insane Disney theme park people. We're used to that, but this is different because at least when you're waiting in lines and dealing with heavy crowds in a theme park, there's a lot to look at. There's a lot that's, you know, visually stimulating, and it's fun to just kind of be there, even though you are waiting in a line. At a convention, there can be cool things to look at, but in general, you are waiting in line at a warehouse.
Right, or surrounded by a black curtain.
Yeah, and so I guess I would also have to agree that it's just the crowds. But like you said, in general, we tend to avoid the crowds because, yeah, despite the fact that, you know, that may be a line for meeting a celebrity, what are you going to do? They're going to say hi and sign something. It's not like you're actually getting to know them.
Right.
You know, going to see a cool panel. Yeah, you may be missing out on something. But all the things that we have listed as the things that are our favorite, you know, activities to do there generally don't involve waiting in long lines.
Yep. That's 100% true.
So, you know, it's like, how much are we really missing? All the cool things are going to end up on YouTube in a couple days anyway.
That is also correct. So I'm just going to come out and say it's lines. I'm going to move on to the next thing because lines are just, nobody likes a line. But I will say one thing that people love to do at cons, Comic-Con, San Diego, Star Wars celebrations, are see the panels. And that's the one thing that we haven't done much of because we like doing so many of the other things. But I did want to point out a couple of really cool things we've seen over the years. I think the best thing we ever saw was the performance of Star Wars Trilogy in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Do you remember that show, Zach?
Oh, I remember it. We saw the sequel too.
Yeah, that's right. And it's basically they use junk props, and they are just really, I mean, I think they are improv based.
Yes, they're improv sketch comedy based folks who honestly I think just got together to do the shows that we saw, the one in Los Angeles and the one in Orlando. But it is literally taking a Star Wars movie, condensing it down into 30 minutes. I think there were maybe 6 to 8 performers. They're running around stage, like crazy people, jumping from scene to scene.
Playing multiple parts.
And they are using sort of found items as costume pieces, as props. And it's very funny, very fast paced, and some of the cleverest sketch comedy I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was really, really entertaining. And there are a lot of shows like that at these celebrations. There are a lot of events like that. One panel that I did see last time, which I was really excited that I did, of course, I had to stand in line to get the ticket for it, but it was the Disney theme park panel back in 2019. It was a panel all about all the things that Star Wars is incorporating into the theme parks. It was 1 month before Galaxy's Edge opened. So it was a teaser, and they showed images for the first time and video clips. And it was hosted by Josh Gad, who apparently, I guess, is the Disney spokesperson now, I guess. It was him and Warwick Davis, who played Wicket the Ewok in Return of the Jedi. That was a really cool thing to see. And something that you and I saw, Zach, we've actually seen this guy twice now, but one of the times we saw him, James Arnold Taylor was doing a panel about voices. We saw one in Disney World, but we also saw one in Celebration. I don't know if you remember that one or not.
I remember the Disney World one because they snuck us in through the back door.
Well, right, because we showed up late.
Yeah.
But I have a picture, of James Arnold Taylor on stage speaking. And in the show notes, we're going to have a lot of pictures of really cool things that we have seen in Star Wars celebrations, and just to kind of give you a vibe and an idea of what it's like.
And for those who don't know, Zach, you want to tell the good folks who James Arnold Taylor is?
I know. I was getting ready to come back around to that.
Most Star Wars fans would probably know him as the voice of Obi-Wan in the Clone Wars animated series. Not the 2003 one, but the long-running TV show that people really like.
The most recent ones. Yeah, he's done the voice of Obi-Wan in pretty much all of those modern animated projects. Sorry, I was going to get back around to it. I was getting back around to it. So, like seeing somebody like Josh Gad and James Arnold Taylor, we see them in like a performance venue, like they're on stage. So it's not like seeing a celebrity out in the wild, but we have seen that too at Star Wars Celebration.
Yeah, I was probably an arm's length away from the actor that played C-3PO in all of the movies,
Anthony Daniels. Yep, I've got a picture of that in the show notes too.
Yes, he had written a book, and he was debuting his book at one of the booths on the vendor floor. And I mean, he was just kind of standing there waiting for the folks to make the announcement about his book, and then I think he was going to be signing autographs and signing the books. But I mean, he was just standing there, and it was really cool to kind of size up what the actor inside C-3PO looks like
Still
in real life.
Incredibly skinny.
Yeah.
It still fits in the gold costume.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, there are a lot of autograph booths and places to get autographs from celebrities, and that's another cool way to meet them. I actually have a photograph in the show notes of David Prowse, the guy that was inside the Darth Vader suit for the original trilogy films, signing an autograph for somebody in a full Darth Vader costume. I thought that was meta within meta. I really am proud of that photograph.
The worst part for me about walking around the floor where like they have like all of the celebrity autographs or whatever, it's cool when you can see them like from afar and like you're like, oh, they got this celebrity there, that's really cool. But like you don't want to get in line for it because lines. But the worst part about that for me is the dreaded secondhand embarrassment of you see the 100-minute long line for this major Star Wars celebrity, and then the next booth over is a guy who a minor appearance in one film, and there's no one in line.
Oh yeah, that is.
It's very sad to see.
Yeah, they've put. I mean, it used to be they were just out in the open, but now I think it's all in a curtained off area, so you don't necessarily see all that. But I remember that exact same feeling. You know, the big three usually were in a tented off area. You know, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill. They've all been to the Star Wars celebrations. But then you've got the general folk, like the guy who was in the Admiral Akbar costume. And, you know, you've got the original Boba Fett, Jeremy Bullock. He's, you know, he's got a pretty good line. But then right next to him would be somebody who played a patron in the cantina in episode 4. And there are tumbleweeds. And they've got a stack of pictures ready to autograph and nobody to give them to. It's so incredibly sad. And so to wrap all this up without going on too long, because we could talk about this forever, I wanted to close out with some of our funniest memories from Star Wars celebrations. Honey, you go first.
Well, this isn't a real knee slapper or anything, but it was something that I thought was incredibly cute. So one of the celebrations that we attended in Orlando, Zach decided when we got there that he wanted to buy a General Grievous costume. And so we purchased the costume for him. He put it on. And being a very tall, skinny child, the General Grievous costume really worked for him. I mean, it looked incredible.
For an off-the-shelf costume, it was pretty good.
It was. It was a really well-made costume. And given his, you know, size and shape, it really looked like a miniature version of General Grievous.
Right.
And he got so many compliments from people over the course of that celebration wearing that costume. I was amused. It really gave me, I got a kick out of it. And I think one of the neatest moments is there was a fan that had made their own General Grievous costume that was really elaborate and really well done.
It looked like a robot.
It looked exactly like General Grievous from the movie, which was, you know, a computer generated.
And he asked to have a picture with Zach.
Yes, he asked to take a picture.
Zach was so very excited about that.
And I got a kick out of that. I thought that was so cute and such a neat moment. That's a funny moment that I will always cherish.
All right, Zach, what do you have?
I mean, we've seen plenty of funny things at Star Wars conventions, you know, people acting silly, great things at booths, people in costumes sitting in a hallway waiting to go into like a booth or something is always very funny. It's like getting them out of context.
Or to go into the costume contest, just sitting there holding their empty head.
But two, I guess, amusing memories come to mind. Mom, you mentioned earlier that like people, you know, have always been very nice to me and Parker, especially when we were younger. And that brought a memory back to me of I may be mixing memories of different cons here, but I'm pretty sure this is what happened. Parker saw X-Wing for the first time, the tabletop board game X-Wing, which I am not going to explain right now. He really wanted to play it, and he was still relatively young at the time. But Parker, you know, he has always been very good at picking up on game rules and then exploiting them.
Right. Very familiar with that.
Yeah, he is just naturally very good at playing, you know, board games. So I have this image, and he really wanted to play one of these games, but, you know, it was all adults playing it. But they were very nice to him, and they were like, sure, kid. And then all of a sudden, I have this this image in my head of going up to that table and seeing a relatively young Parker beating these adult men at this board game. And then the other memory that comes to mind that was kind of funny is, Mom, you also mentioned that there's a lot of like freebies and giveaways they do. And I remember getting a hold of some like it was like a concept Boba Fett figure or something like that, or it was like I built a piece in this Lego wall and they gave me a minifigure.
Right, that's right. It was the white Boba Fett.
Yeah, so I forget exactly what it was, but it was something like that. And so I had that with me, and I was like playing with it at a table. And you guys had left to like go to the bathroom or get food or something, and you left me with Parker. So it was just the two of us at a table. and I was playing with the figure. Parker was probably, I don't know, napping. He was a baby. I don't know. These these grown men came up to me and were like, "Oh my God, where did you get that figure?" And I was very frightened and thought they were going to hurt me and take it.
Oh my God.
This just sounds like bad parenting.
No. It realistically, it was fine. I was just an anxious child. And I was like, it's just a little freebie, just like you go over and do this thing. And they were like, "Oh, we need to go get that, man. We gotta go." And because collectors are insane.
Yes, right.
So I don't know. That was just another amusing memory of people seeing this. I was a young child. This figure kind of meant nothing to me other than I got a free toy, but to them it meant everything.
Yeah, that was from the Lego booth. It was for the Empire Strikes Back anniversary. You put a brick in the wall, and then you got a free Boba Fett, a white Boba Fett minifig, because it was the concept art Boba Fett minifig. But they were all the rage that year at Celebration. Okay.
Another little tag I'll just throw in that it's kind of funny. I've forever tied these two events together, but I had to leave the last Star Wars Celebration we went to early so that I could go back to our hometown so that I could make it to prom.
That's right.
So I don't know. That's just I have forever linked those two events.
Well, yeah, and your first solo train trip.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I had to go make, high school memories that I would cherish forever while you guys got to have fun at a convention. So, whatever.
So I'll wrap it up. I've got two stories. One is kind of amusing. The second one is our favorite. But the first one was, we talked about the vendor booths, and there was this place called Think Geek that used to exist online, which sold a lot of really cool pop culture merchandise, Star Wars, Star Trek, whatever. But for this particular, at this particular booth this year, you pre-ordered something and you picked it up at Celebration. So we've talked about seeing people in costumes, and it happens all day long. But I give props to this guy. He was dressed head to toe, full 100% Darth Vader, probably from The Empire Strikes Back because he was all shiny. Had the breathing. He had a vocalizer that changed his voice. He was standing there with his thumbs in his belt buckle, and I forget what the guy's name was, but he goes up to the counter, so I'll just make up a name. He goes up to the counter and says, and the guy says, "May I help you?" And he goes, "Yes, I am John Smith, and I am here to pick up my pre-order." And of course, it comes out perfect in the Vader voice, and the guy said, "Yes, let me go get it for you." And he goes, "Very good." And then he gets the merchandise, and he hands it to him, and he opens up the bag and looks at it, and Darth Vader voice goes, "That is cool." And then he didn't know I was right behind him, and I was probably too close. He turned around, because you can't see anything in those helmets. He turned around and he goes, "Oh, pardon me, I am so very sorry. The Dark Lord of the Sith apologized to me." So in the show notes, I had taken a picture of this guy. I call it Retail Vader. It's in the show notes of him standing at the counter waiting for the present. Waiting for his pre-order. Mm-hmm. So this last story has become family lore, and we have told this story, and sometimes we just say this line randomly when we are at a fast food establishment. But we were in one of the celebrations in Orlando, and there was an Asian food booth at the little food court. Mm-hmm. And I had gone up there to order some food. Well, right in front of me, that placed his order first, was a guy dressed as Emperor Palpatine. Full Palpatine, hood up. He stayed in character the whole time. And he had his hands up to explain it. It's like Mr. Burns with his little wrinkly hands.
From The Simpsons.
From The Simpsons, with his little hands up there.
Well, and it's important. Like, he had the makeup all over his hands.
Oh,
so
yeah.
To, make him look old like Palpatine.
Oh, yeah, he had the wrinkled face. He had the hood all the way up and gave the shadow over his eyes. And he had the walking cane and the whole 9 yards. And he walks up to the counter, and the guy says, "What would you like?" And he says, staying in full character, Palpatine voice goes, "I'll have the Kung Pao chicken." And we say that line constantly. And then when it came time to pay, this always made me laugh too. He had a little coin purse. And apparently it was somewhere inside of his cape, like a little pocket that he had made for himself. And when I say coin purse, think of the old coin purses from the 30s, 40s, and 50s that snapped together at the top, and they were made of fabric, and you open it up and it had like a gold metal top. The guys, they said, "That'll be, $750. And he goes, "Let me get my money." And he pulls this little tiny pouch out of his change purse, and his hands are shaking because he's still doing the full emperor. And he opens it up and he's rummaging through it for his change. And he goes, "Here, my good man," and hands him the money. And I did not know it until today when I was looking through pictures. One of the kids had taken a picture of me at this counter with Kung Pao Palpatine. I did not know that this photo existed. It was from such a low angle, it was probably Zack, because it was within an entire series of photos of kneecaps and behinds. So I'm sure it was one of the kids. But there he was. "I'll have the Kung Pao chicken." We'll just leave the talk of Star Wars Celebration on that high note. Thanks so much for being here with us, honey.
Thank you.
And Zack, thank you for joining us from your undisclosed location in the Echo Base Studios in Chicago.
Always happy to yap.
The Kung Pao chicken.
Well, where are you? Wait a sec, you've been flying around for 2 weeks trying to get a signal? Oh, you must smell like feet wrapped in leathery, burnt bacon. I'm sorry. I thought my Dark Lord of the Sith could protect a small thermal exhaust port that's only 2 meters wide. That thing wasn't even fully paid off yet. Do you have any idea what this is going to do to my credit? Hang on, I got another call.
Thanks so much for joining us for another episode of Mickey, Marvel, and More. And a big thank you to Laura and Zack for joining me in the family chat to talk all about Star Wars Celebrations. One thing I can guarantee you is that the Mickey, Marvel, and More team will be at Celebration Los Angeles on April 1st through the 4th in 2027. And we promise to give you a full report about all of our adventures and all of the things that we see and do there. Make sure you check out this episode's show notes for a look at all of the pictures that I linked there from our past Star Wars celebrations. The celebrity pictures are labeled so you can see some of the Star Wars royalty, from David Prowse giving an autograph to Darth Vader to Steve Sansweet performing a wedding ceremony, as well as the funny pics of retail Darth Vader and the recently discovered pic of Kung Pao Palpatine. While you're there in the show notes, check out the links to all of our socials and maybe drop a comment on one of our pages, or send us an email at mickeymarvelandmore, all one word, @gmail.com with a story, chat idea, or a comment. And if we read your comment on the show, you will become an official friend of the show. And I don't need to tell you how prestigious this is. It will change your life. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, my name is Mark, and this has been Mickey, Marvel, and More. If you didn't,
then you have been listening to Emperor Palpatine, and may I suggest the Kung Pao chicken.
You just knew I had to say that again. We'll see you next time. Hey, is anybody else hungry for Asian food?